The global community is no longer afraid of the Iranian regime because the massive military power of our armed forces stands ready. Intelligence reports suggest that Iran could possess a functional nuclear weapon within 1 month, which creates a very high level of urgency. Our specialized air units are fully prepared for every eventuality, as the recent deployment of B-2 bombers has already proven our dominance. These stealth bombers successfully penetrated deep into hostile territory, hitting their targets with extreme precision and obliterating every single strategic military facility. The message is clear that if you continue these provocations, we are going to do very bad things to your entire nation. Our current state of readiness is even higher than it was before the intense 12-day war, making us a formidable opponent. Reports confirm that Iranian missile launchers are currently failing catastrophically across the country, leaving their defensive lines in a state of chaos. Regional intelligence sources in the Gulf confirm that critical systems remain severely damaged and completely inoperable 8 months after the major conflict ended. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has recently fled into a heavily fortified underground bunker, which is located deep beneath the streets of Tehran. While the leader remains in hiding, his son Masoud has assumed full command of daily operations, managing the regime's most critical military decisions. This sudden relocation occurred after senior security officials warned of an increased likelihood of a massive American strike against their strategic positions. The fortified shelter contains a complex series of interconnected tunnels designed to ensure the survival of the leadership during a catastrophic aerial bombardment. Gulf states have expressed deep concern, warning the United States that the Iranian missile program could still cause significant damage to regional interests. The Washington Post reported on February 1st that a Gulf assessment concluded several key elements of the missile program remain somewhat intact. These remaining elements include short-range ballistic missiles and their mobile launchers, which are being hidden in the rugged and mountainous terrain regions. Meanwhile, the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is now positioned within striking distance, carrying enough firepower to penetrate any underground fortification. The Supreme Leader finds himself effectively trapped underground, while the primary deterrent of his regime lies broken and exposed to the world. You must share this critical information everywhere, because what is happening right now in Tehran exposes the regime as a weak paper tiger. Ali Khamenei remains trapped, while his once proud missile program crumbles under the weight of severe technical failures and constant foreign surveillance. Before we break down the specific reasons why these attempts to rebuild launchers have failed, we must examine the internal power shift. Masoud Khamenei, who is the Ayatollah's third son, has now taken over the management of his father's critical day-to-day responsibilities. He is currently serving as the primary channel for all communication between the Supreme Leader and the executive branches of the regime. This unprecedented transfer of command authority proves that the Supreme Leader truly fears a targeted assassination from his many powerful international enemies. Nobody anticipated the immense scale of the damage that the coordinated Israeli airstrikes inflicted on the core of Iran's launcher infrastructure. A former Iranian diplomat recently told the Washington Post that the regime has tried to double its missile production since the war. They claim to have made significant progress in repairing the mobile launchers that were severely damaged during the intense 12-day regional conflict. To protect these assets, the regime has deployed several remaining launchers into the rugged, mountainous regions to avoid detection by advanced satellites. This desperate tactic is designed to make it much more difficult for the United States or Israel to destroy their remaining firepower. However, the intelligence assessments provided by the Pentagon paint a significantly different and much darker picture of the current Iranian military situation. Reliable estimates suggest that the Revolutionary Guard began the recent war with 480 functional transporter-erector launcher units total. By the time the 12-day war finally concluded, the regime was left with roughly only 100 operational missile launcher units. Losing 380 mobile launchers in such a short period has completely shattered the regime's ability to project strategic power. The Islamic Republic still hopes to build its missile force back to its previous heights, but the path to recovery is extremely difficult. Gulf state intelligence has recently revealed the true state of Iranian readiness, which is far lower than what the official propaganda suggests. Their assessment noted that the regime has tried to rebuild other unspecified capabilities destroyed during the war in June 2025. These failed reconstruction efforts prove that the technical expertise and resources of the regime are now reaching a very critical breaking point. The Gulf nations have warned the United States that Iran still possesses several short-range ballistic missiles and their operational mobile launchers. These weapons could be used to target American interests across the Persian Gulf if the current diplomatic tensions escalate into conflict. Iran has shown its willingness to strike back before, such as the attack on the Al-Assad airbase in Iraq. Another significant retaliation occurred in June 2025, when the regime launched missiles at the Al-Wadai airbase. However, these short-range systems are essentially everything the regime has left after the devastating strikes on their primary long-range capabilities. Consider why the supreme leader decided to flee into deep underground bunkers instead of projecting strength and confidence to his people. This facility is described by intelligence sources as a hardened network of interconnected tunnels designed for the survival of the top leadership. While the leader is hiding, the regime is struggling to maintain its control over the military command structure during this critical time. The underground basing architecture, known as missile cities, was originally intended to preserve the ballistic missile stockpiles from heavy aerial bombardment. During the 12-day war, the Israeli Air Force successfully exploited the airspace to strike many launchers before they could even fire. Although the missile cities saved some of the stockpiles, they could not protect the vital transporter units from being completely destroyed. Without functional mobile launchers, the missiles sitting in underground storage are nothing more than useless and very expensive metal tubes in caves. The public warning from the supreme leader reveals the deep desperation of the regime to deter any future American or Israeli strikes. He stated that the Americans should know that starting a war this time will lead to a very large regional conflict. The regime claims they do not seek to attack any country, but will deliver a firm blow to anyone who harasses them. These threats are coming from a leader who is currently hiding in a calm and serene environment deep under the ground. The lack of visibility for the supreme leader has created a sense of uncertainty and fear among the remaining military commanders. Many analysts believe that the Iranian deterrence strategy is now based on empty threats and outdated propaganda, rather than real military power. Recent Revolutionary Guard naval exercises in the Strait of Hormuz were canceled immediately following a very stern warning from senior American officials. This sudden cancellation proves that the regime understands its missile forces cannot defend against a coordinated and powerful United States military strike. Tehran's tactical retreat shows that their deterrence is no longer effective when faced with the overwhelming presence of the American naval fleet. The carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and its powerful support ships are currently deployed to the Middle East to ensure regional security and stability. This massive strike group includes several guided missile destroyers, like the Frank Peterson and the Michael Murphy, which carry advanced weaponry systems. The aircraft carrier itself carries multiple squadrons of Super Hornets, Growlers, and the highly advanced F-35C stealth fighter jets. Additionally, the United States has deployed about a dozen F-15 jets to bolster offensive capabilities and maintain total regional air superiority. This concentrated assembly of high-technology firepower is ready to execute complex strike packages against any high-value targets within the region. President Trump has clearly defined two major red lines that would trigger immediate and decisive military action against the hostile Iranian regime. These include the mass execution of peaceful protesters or the continued development of a dangerous nuclear program that threatens global security interests. The nuclear program is now the primary justification for potential strikes, regardless of the internal political situation or protest-related fatalities and casualties. Tehran has effectively walked into a strategic trap by continuing their uranium enrichment capabilities despite repeated warnings from the entire international community. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi recently stated that any American attack would spark a conflict that extends across the entire Middle East region. He claimed that Iran would target all American bases in retaliation for any future strikes against their sovereign territory or nuclear facilities. This rhetoric rings hollow because the regime already attempted to strike the Al Uwad base and failed to achieve any significant results. Regional partners like Saudi Arabia and Egypt are concerned about retaliation, yet they understand the necessity of curbing the regime's nuclear ambitions. The presence of such a massive invasion-level force concentration indicates that the Pentagon is no longer interested in simple diplomatic posturing. Every movement of the American fleet is being monitored by the regime, creating a state of constant tension and extreme psychological pressure. Iranian lawmakers recently staged a dramatic scene in parliament by wearing Revolutionary Guard uniforms and chanting loud slogans against their foreign enemies. However, this theatrical performance cannot stop the high-speed Tomahawk cruise missiles that are currently being prepared for a possible future deployment. While the politicians shout in the capital, the supreme leader remains hidden in his calm and tranquil bunker to avoid any potential danger. President Trump recently sidestepped questions about whether the regime would be emboldened if the United States decided to back away from strikes. He emphasized that Iran should negotiate a satisfactory deal quickly, although he remains uncertain if the regime leadership will truly comply. The massive scale of American military deployment proves that this is not just simple posturing to gain an advantage during negotiations. Dozens of heavy transport aircraft are currently unloading advanced military equipment at various strategic locations throughout the entire Middle Eastern region. This level of force concentration is designed for total destruction, rather than just acting as a temporary deterrent against hostile actions. The Defense Ministry spokesman claimed their response would be more decisive and painful than ever before if they were actually targeted. Such threats ring hollow when the Revolutionary Guard has already canceled their own naval exercises after receiving a warning from Washington. Analysts have discovered that the supreme leader has been largely absent from public view since the intense conflict began last June. While Benjamin Netanyahu was constantly present in the media, the supreme leader only released 2 video messages from his underground facility. He has reportedly suspended all electronic communications and only speaks with his military commanders through a very small group of trusted aides. Tehran is currently offering to talk about various issues, except for the 3 main things that actually matter to the Americans. These negotiations are likely a form of political theater, intended to buy more time to repair their broken and damaged launchers. If these diplomatic talks ultimately collapse, and the president orders military action, the remaining missile cities will be destroyed very permanently. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the Military Story channel to stay updated on these important developments. We will continue to watch how this historic situation unfolds in the coming days, as the entire world waits for the results.